So this is a low pressure 517 tip.
Okay.
All these tips are going to have 3 numbers on them. This one's a 517.
Okay.
That first number is going to be your fan pattern size in inches, doubled when you're 12 inches away from the wall. So let's say we have the gun, we have this tip in. When we're 12 inches away from this piece, this is giving us a 10-inch fan pattern.
Okay.
Okay.
If you have a 314 tip, when I'm 12 inches away from the wall, that's giving me a 6-inch fan pattern.
Okay.
So you always multiply this number by 2.
By 2, and then
And when you're 12 inches away. 12 inches away from the substrate is best practices in terms of
it's
spray
standard,
technique.
almost standard.
Yep, that's the
And that's
benchmark.
on like walls, wood, everything, doors.
You always want to be around 12. And now it might, depending on what it is you're spraying, if you're, it might vary a little bit. You don't need a ruler by any means to measure where you are away from the wall. But that's the benchmark that all sprayer companies go off of for that first number.
Okay.
Okay.
Now the second number is the orifice size to the 1,000th of an inch.
Okay.
So this is a 17,000th of an inch orifice, which basically means how big is that opening and how much product is coming out of this tip. So the tip determines the flow rate. I always kind of say the tip is the brain of this whole operation. It's telling you how big your fan pattern is and how much paint's coming out.
Okay.
These second 2 numbers is always predicated on the product that you're spraying. So whether it's super paint, duration, whatever it is, if you look up the product data sheet, sometimes it's on the can too. They'll give you a range of orifice sizes to use. So Promar 200 eggshell might say 15 to 19. So that's the range you want to be in because that's what's going to achieve the required wet mills for proper curing, bonding, and all for the paint to perform correctly.
Okay.
The reason they give you the range is because it depends on how fast you're moving. Not a 210.
Okay.
You can tell obviously there's a difference in these tips. So the colors are a little bit different. This is a fine finish low pressure tip.
Right.
This is a low pressure tip. Cabinets, doors, furniture, trim,
Use this.
fine finish. Walls and siding, low pressure.
Fences, maybe you use a 21. If you're doing fences like those.
Oh yeah. And like I said, it's dependent on what it is that you're spraying for that orifice size.
Yeah. I've done some fences that, there's any quality would work for fences,
Yeah. With the opening.
Yeah.
That's the gasket and
That's the
seat.
gasket.
Yep, and that comes with every tip package that you purchase.
Oh, that's good.
So just because they are smaller parts, they tend to get lost. So
they
you have 3 main controls, and one of them is an on-off switch. All right, so you have your on-off switch here. This unit is on. Obviously, nothing's happening though. So I always say there's 2 on-off switches. One that connects it to the power, and the other that engages the pump, which is this pressure control knob right here. So when you turn this pressure knob up, that engages the pump and it starts pumping. Now what's going to determine where this material is going is your spray prime valve. So you have your intake tube here.
Okay.
This always goes into whatever you're trying to pump. So I had storage solution in here previously, so I flushed it out with water first. This intake tube is picking up the water through the pump, and then it's going to be directed through this manifold right here. So all this spray prime valve it's just a ball valve, and it's telling the product where to go. If it's in the downward position, it's going to pick up through this intake tube, and it's going to be redirected to go back down through this prime tube.
Okay.
So when it's pointed down, it's picking up and going right back down. That would be what's called priming the pump. Okay? Now when it's pointed out, like it is right now, it's getting picked up through the intake tube and then sent out to the hose and to the gun. So there's only 2 directions on this spray prime valve. And all that is a ball valve that's directing the product where to go.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And those are the only 3 controls that you really need to be aware of. Now in terms of filters, you have 3 filters on this unit. The first one is the most important, and that's your inlet strainer.
Yeah.
Some people call it a rock catcher. This is, if you only have 1 filter on this entire machine, this is the one you want. This is your first line of defense between whatever's in that paint that shouldn't be in there from getting into the pump.
Right.
So if there's, skins or chunks or debris or anything like that, that's going to prevent it from getting into the fluid section. Your second filter is going to be in here. This is your manifold filter. The only thing that that's preventing, the only thing that the manifold and the gun filter are preventing is tip clogs. So once that product is picked up through the intake tube and we're in the spray mode, it's going to filter through this manifold before it goes to the hose. Once it goes through the hose, it's going to filter again when we get to the gun.
That's awesome. That's our problem.
Yeah?
Is
Yes, I guess I'll say, that have nothing to do with the sprayer itself, but have everything to do with spraying. And this is preventative maintenance. This is going to prevent problems and downtime on the job site. First one, strain your paint. Those bag strainers are 50 cents a pop, and it's just an insurance policy. Again, just kind of like that rock catcher, that inlet strainer.
Yeah.
It's anything that's in that paint that you don't want getting into that pump that's going to cause problems, it's preventing that. So if you run everything through a bag strainer first, any of those chunks, or if there's little, if there's debris in it, or if it's an old can, things like that, it'll prevent
when
that from
paint
getting
freezes-
full filters from the inside out. So you have to take it off of the rod that's in this manifold. If you can't get it off because it's so caked in paint, it's not doing you a bit of good. It's not filtering at all.
Okay.
That's when you're going to start getting more tip clogs. So I've seen that quite a bit as well. But and by clean out, when you're flushing, once you're done for the day, take the filters out, swish them around in a bucket of water, make sure they're clean. You can see through them, pop them back in and go.
You wrap it and then you use it and then you put it and throw it
Yep.
away.
1 gallon, 5 gallon?
And
If
like I
anyone
said,
makes mistakes, you make him wear it.
I mean, I've seen these pumps, and when I talk, this right here is the pump. This is the fluid section. So this is what's pulling the product and then sending it to the manifold. This is where, when I talk about a repack, there's seals or O-rings that are in this pump. With it being under so much pressure, they wear out over time. It's like getting an oil change on a car. But using best practices and preventative maintenance tactics, you can extend the life of these pumps before having to repack them. I've seen them last 2 gallons. I've seen them last 2,000 gallons. It depends on how you take care of it. So if you flush diligently and you take these steps to ensure to go. But it's when, I see guys leave it in paint, or, they don't strain their paint. They don't, all these different.
Okay.
That makes sense?
Yeah.
Perfect. Putting one fluid in and getting another one out.
I have a question when you're finished.
Okay. All right. Right now, we got to flush that water out and replace it with paint. The first thing that we're going to do is fill the pump up with paint and prime the pump. Priming the pump basically means we're getting rid of whatever's in there currently, replacing it with good product, and getting all the air out of the pump. So you'll see when I have it in prime position,
Right.
the pump's on, but nothing's happening. In order to engage the pump, I'm going to turn the pressure up. There's all the water coming out of the fluid section. It's going to stop, and then eventually we'll have a steady stream of this product. Once we have good material coming through here, we have a steady stream, there's no water in there anymore. I'm going to flip this over
And flip it.
and I'm going to clip it right here. So that was the flushing part of the setup.
Okay.
Now we're going to prime the pump. We're going to run this for about 30 seconds. The reason I clipped that, this is all good material. We don't want to waste it, right?
Right.
So I'm going to put it right over here. I'm going to turn this pressure back up. And all it's doing is picking up and jumping back down. And this would go forever, right? Picking up, jumping back down. You want to do this for about 30 seconds to ensure all the air is out of the pump. It's 1 squirt per day.
Okay, it's like WD-40.
It's not a lubricant. It's more of an inhibitor. It's going to prevent any acrylic or paint from drying onto that piston.
Okay.
So it's just ensuring that nothing's drying on that. Tell you, can't spray on quartz. You need at least a gallon to spray.
You need a quart just to fill the hose up.
Yep, that'll just fill the hose up. So same thing as when we're priming it. You're gonna see the water. Eventually it's gonna start to change color. Latch right here flips down and it's a safety. So these units,
Okay, that
Ready
you
to spray.
flush it.
now,
When I take a break, I
low, that's where you're gonna wanna be when you're priming the pump. You don't need any pressure to do
Right.
that. Now when we move it up here, this says Rack X low pressure. So those green and yellow tips, that's all the pressure you'll need to atomize with in order to achieve proper atomization. Now if you keep turning up, that's when you're gonna get more overspray. You're having more pressure than you need to. My rule of thumb is start with the lowest pressure possible and build up until you achieve your desired fan pattern. Actually doesn't look too bad. I'm gonna turn it down a little bit just so you can see.
yeah.
So let's see what this looks like. So see those heavy edge marks?
Yeah.
Those are called, some people call them fingers, some people call them tails. That's a surefire sign you need more pressure. So if we were gonna start with the lowest pressure possible, we make a test pass on this, we see that fan pattern, we know we gotta turn it up. So this is kind of our starting point. So we'll turn it up a little bit. A little bit
Well, that's
better.
good.
I'm gonna turn it up just a tad bit more.
Nice.
No heavy edge. On the back of all the cans, all the product data sheets are. In terms of actually spraying, back 6 months from now and pull the trigger, it's under pressure.
Right.
You have to relieve that pressure before you start doing anything else.
Okay.
A big misconception is that a lot of guys will just go to the spray prime valve
Right.
and flip it into prime, right? But that's dumping all that pressure through that one valve. It'll wear out in about 4 months. You'll get a new one. So you always want to relieve pressure through the gun because this is what's rated to withstand that pressure, right?
Right.
This is what's spraying it. So you always want to bleed pressure through the gun.
Okay.
How you do that? Take the pressure knob, turn it all the way down to 0. Come over to your slot pail.
All right.
Now you've relieved pressure. Now you can flip that valve into the prime position. So now that we're in prime, we have our intake tube in water. I'm going to turn the pressure up to engage the pump. We've got product coming out of here right now. Now we got water. And again, this water is not going to be clear because that intake tube is still full of paint. So it's going to turn that water whatever color the paint is. So now that we got the paint out, I'm going to flip it into spray. Like I said, we got a quart of product in here. I'm going to recirculate this back into the gallon. This is a little bit of a risky game because once it gets to water, it's going to start splashing. So you kind of have to be quick with it. Once that pump starts going a little bit faster, whenever you start hearing splash, that's when I take it over. There might still be a little bit of paint left in here.
Yeah.
I'd rather waste an ounce of paint than get splashed
Yeah.
in the face.
The loop.
Yeah.
The gallon.
And you can hear the difference too once that water starts coming out. Now that I've got all my paint out of the lines and out of the pump, I'm going to turn the pressure down to 0, come to the slot pail, pull the trigger, lead pressure. I'm going to flip this into prime, and I'm going to get my fresh bucket of water. While I'm doing that, I'm also going to clean this intake tube and the rock catcher.
Right.
So all that's really needed is to just run this under water. A rag would clean this all up. We're essentially going to clean this, so the next bucket of water that we get is going to be pumping crystal clear through
I've
there.
never seen any painters with
Pressure up.
same thing.
Same thing we just did. And you can see that it's switching material.
That's why when I brought my sprayer, I have it in the bucket. You keep these inside the bucket.
Yeah, it's getting a little bit clear, starting to become translucent. Flip it to spray.
You want me to clean cover the paint? Should I cover it?
Oh!
It's gonna be 15 minutes at the beginning and 15 minutes at the end.
Position.
Oh, you got in the reverse. Okay. And does this flip halfway only? It doesn't go all the way. It's only like half turn.
Yes, yeah, so I can't.
The other one is light. Yeah.
Just coming out straight like a shot.
Oh, okay.
Match in here. Pop this off. And here's your gun filter. So you can see this one's looking not too bad, but again, just getting all that paint off.
So tell her what
do that every
to
time.
clean all
Yep.
of.
Here we go. This one, that manifold filter, you can put it any which way, it's the same. On this one, I always think of it like a battery, the knob's going up.
Right.
If you did it the other way, it would get dented and smashed. And,
Cleaning and things. It's like a car. You know, if we can make it last longer.
Yep.
So what's the price on this? And what's the price?
We're good to go.
Yeah, so price normally these are